The SmallCapPower CEO interview featuring Eurocontrol Technics.
Eurocontrol is a public Canadian company. We participate in the energy security industry. We have two wholly owned subsidiaries, both of which reside in Israel. One is Global Fluids International, commonly referred to as GFI. The other is Zenometrics Inc. Global Fluids International possesses technology that's trademarked as PetrolMark, and it's covert molecular marking systems for marking hydrocarbons. So you can think barcodes for oil. Zenometrics is in the X-ray fluorescence technology area. The relationship between the two subsidiaries is that Zenometrics are the manufacturers of the detectors that are part of the PetrolMark solution. Zenometrics also has many other customers and a large install base of approximately 800 units worldwide. X-ray fluorescence as a technology is been around for some time. It is commonly used for doing analysis of material composition. Recently, Frost & Sullivan, the international research house, acknowledged Zenometrics as one of the world's leaders in the development of X-ray fluorescent technology. So that was something that we were happy to hear. We acquired them on the 1st of October, and Frost & Sullivan made this acknowledgement shortly thereafter.
Can you tell our viewers about your PetrolMark system?
PetrolMark is a molecular marking system. It is a replacement for historical use of colored dyes to identify various types of hydrocarbons, typically used the dye business to identify subsidized fuels. Numerous shortcomings to colored dyes. They're obviously visible, so the criminal element can be perfectly confident when they've removed the dye. And they're also relatively easily imitated and also easily removed from fuel. So PetrolMark is a covert marking system. We mark hydrocarbons at a parts per million level. As an example, if I'm marking a fuel line for a customer at 4 parts per million, I ought to be able to go downstream from the marking site if everything is in good shape and find the marker at 4 parts per million. If I find the marker at 3 parts per million, I know that what we just measured has been adulterated to 25% by the addition of some kind of an adulterant that is then diluted down the marker.
So specifically, how does PetrolMark work?
We embed the marker at a parts per million basis, and then we check downstream for the presence of the marker, and that's where the X-ray fluorescence is used. So as an example, if we're marking a retail fuel line, we could go into a gas station, and let's assume for the moment that we're marking this particular fuel line at 4 parts per million. We ought to be able to go into the gas station and find the marker at 4 parts per million. When the way we do that is we take a small sample from the tank, we put it into the detector, and the detector within 3 minutes will tell us whether the marker is present and in what concentration. As long as it's present in the correct concentration, the test is done and you move on.
What do you consider your key competitive advantage in the marketplace today?
I think that there are key advantages. I think there are a number of elements that differentiate us from others. Firstly, this is the only ISO accredited technology for this application. We also are, to the best of my knowledge, the only people who can get the full final forensic result in the field where the hydrocarbons are sitting. Most other technologies require samples to be taken to labs. The shortcoming of that arrangement is twofold. Firstly, it's time consuming to send samples to labs. On top of that, if you choose to prosecute from the lab results, often the first argument you'll encounter in court is, where did the sample go? How long did it take? How many people handled it? And so forth. So it's a chain of custody argument. So what we like to say is we don't take the sample to the lab, we take the lab to the sample. Our X-ray fluorescent detectors are mobile. They can be easily put into a car or a truck, so we can go to the location where the fuel sits. And the major advantage of that is that if we find material that has been tampered with, we can lock it up. So when we go to court, We don't have a chain of custody argument, but we do have evidence, and we can very specifically tell you to what degree the underlying hydrocarbon sample has been manipulated.
Can you tell our viewers about your recent acquisition?
The acquisition of Zenimetrics was really sort of one-part vertical integration. We do use Zenimetrics as the manufacturer of the detectors that are part of the PetrolMark solution, and it's also one-part diversification. They are a supplier to us. Clearly, we're not their only customer. They have an installed base of almost 800 units globally, roughly a third of those in the United States or in North America. So it was important from my point of view, and the people at Zenimetrics understood the logic that the detectors that we use in the PetrolMark solution are a very important part of the overall solution. And it was important that we control our destiny as far as that technology is concerned, and we have successfully, with Zenimetrics, introduced the second generation of these detectors, which essentially what we were seeking to do in the second generation was to shrink the machine, which we've successfully done by roughly 40% by both weight and volume. On the diversification side, X-ray fluorescence has applications in the mining industry, in the petrochemical industry, in forensics, and so forth. So this also serves to diversify Eurocontrol Group away from being solely a hydrocarbon industry play.
How is the company progressing with its African contracts?
The implementation is coming along very well. We're up and running, have been for some time. It's been very useful to us from the point of view that we also have a contract in Uganda, which predates, that would have been 2009. And those projects are serving as a very good reference sites for other countries that are looking at potentially using our technology. Interestingly, Africa has a history of marking its hydrocarbons and with color dyes and similar technologies. So we've been successful in winning 2 government tenders thus far, Tanzania and Uganda. We have numerous other opportunities in Africa that we're pursuing, both in the hydrocarbon prolific Gulf of Guinea area and also in Central and East Africa. And we'll have more to say about Africa and our opportunities there in the coming weeks.
What is the sales strategy for Eurocontrol?
These contracts are typically, our counterparties are governments and oil companies. So therefore the sales cycles perhaps tend to be somewhat longer than other industries, but we've been at this for some time. You know, the strategy from the point of view of an operational basis, we look to be involved in projects as a service provider. The actual inspection and downstream monitoring of these projects isn't generally done by us. It's either the customer arranges to do it for themselves. Obviously, oil companies have the wherewithal to do this. In government circumstances, government ministries are often the custodian of the downstream protocol. It's also an area in which the international inspection industry participates, in which there's numerous large companies that provide inspection and certification services in the petrochemical complex.
What is the revenue model for Eurocontrol?
Now with 2 subsidiaries, Global Fluids International and Zenimetrics, I mean, on the side of Global Fluids International, when we put together a project on behalf of a customer, the ongoing operation requires the consumption of our liquid chemical marker. So that part represents a reoccurring revenue model. And then we now control Zenimetrics, who are the manufacturers of the detectors. So every marking program, you know, its 2 key components are the injection of the chemical marker and the detection downstream of the chemical marker. We now have both sides covered. And so typically the Zenometrics sales are sort of one-time sales into a project supplying the required number of detectors. And on the GFI side, we have the reoccurring revenue of the sale of the liquid chemical marker. And then further from that, we also have the sales that Zenometrics executes in other vertical markets outside of the petrochemical industry.
Eurocontrol recently completed a round of financing. What are these funds intended for?
Well, the capital is generally used for working capital purposes for the corporation, but and importantly, we're currently developing the second generation of hydrocarbon markers, covert hydrocarbon markers. That technology will be based on DNA, so that's an ongoing project. We also have R&D projects in Zenometrics to develop new point of sale authentication verification technologies. As many people will recognize, there's been an explosion in the last 10 years in the counterfeit good market, and one of the approaches to deal with that is to bring authentication technologies to the point of sale, which is to say at the point of sale the product is authenticated as being the real thing and not a counterfeit. So that's been one of the underlying drivers behind that recent raise.
So what are the near-term investment catalysts for investors?
Well, the catalyst is going to be more contracts. Where we go into the 2011 calendar year, which is also our fiscal year, in very good shape. We have numerous large and mid-sized projects that we are in pursuit of in many locations in the world. Africa is an important market. Also in Asia, we recently signed an agreement with Strong Petrochemicals of Hong Kong, who are our marketing partners for the technology in a variety of Asian countries. We have interesting opportunities in the Middle East and in the Far East. So it's really about developing further contracts and cash flow. These contracts, although the sales cycles tend to be somewhat longer given the nature of the counterparty, once you are in, there are sort of barriers to exit. Very difficult from our perspective to graduate to better technology. And in fact, the better technology you will ultimately graduate will be our technology. I think one of the compelling aspects of the company from a shareholder point of view is in fact the reoccurring revenue model. These contracts tend to be 3 to 4 year contracts, renewable thereafter. And clearly if a company or country has moved to a hydrocarbon marking program, it's not something that can be interrupted. It must be ongoing all the time, otherwise the integrity of the program is lost.
For all you need to follow the Eurocontrol Technics story, see their company hub on SmallCapPower.com. SmallCapPower.com. Investment ideas and research.